Hi, I'm Srini. Welcome to Focus Build for greater success in S4hana. Now let's get started. Today, we'll go over the value of Focus Build in your S4 project and how it can help you um, to bring a greater success in an S4hana project. We'll start with introduction, and I'll go over the various terms and concepts I'll be referring to in this presentation. And I would also like to introduce you to the fundamentals. What is focus build and what are the various components in it. And we'll spend more time on the various value creators in focus build. And of course, we'll also go over the various advantages of focus build. So, about me, I'm Srini. I have 20 years of experience in SAP implementation. At Synergetic, I'm responsible for the focus build solution delivery and architecture. Um, Now, the terms and concepts. Let's start with the Activate methodology. Activate is SAP's proprietary methodology. It's based on Agile, and it provides standard activities and processes to implement any SAP application, uh, not just S4HANA. The greater benefits of that is that it's a proven methodology and it's agile based, and it will reduce risk in your project and also reduce wastage. The next is best practices. Best practices are industry standard business processes which can be activated or you can also install the best practice content on Solution Manager, or you can even they're also available online for viewing and understanding. Um, Best practice are basically the way I look at it is that they are ready to consume industry standard business processes. Um, Agile. Agile is an implementation methodology which basically based on the idea of an iterative development and learning through the iteration with by making the implementation team and the customer as a one team. You learn through every iteration, and and also it involves adopting a customer centric approach. Release management is basically planning and grouping of the go live of projects actually. So the release will basically give you an idea about what is going live, or which all the projects in an organization are going live at one time and things like that. Solution and branches. Solution is basically a concept in solution documentation or process documentation in the solution management system. Solution is a term which groups all the objects such as the landscape as well as all the documentation and everything involved in a particular solution, into it groups into one entity. And a branch represents a version of documentation. Import represents the best practice imported content, and design represents the stage where a stage of documentation, a version of documentation where we're trying to develop the target business process. Next is the process steps. Process steps are basically they represent the steps executed by the business when completing a business transaction. So they are basically used in the documentation of a business process, in the process documentation. We will go over that in the presentation also. All right, now let's come to discussion about what is focus build. So focus build is a pre-configured, ready-to-use environment which is installed on top of the solution manager as an add-on. And what I mean by pre-configured is that you don't have to configure anything in focus build. It's completely configured and ready to use. And so it enables you to jumpstart an S4 HANA or any SAP implementation. So it has a requirements to deploy workflow, everything you need to implement an SAP application is available in Focus Build, and it is built with the requirements to deploy workflow on top of the Solution Manager modules. It uses all the modules as shown in the picture. It uses project management, solution documentation, requirements management, change and release management, and also, of course, manual and automated testing. So that's what Focus Build is. Now, Focus Build is a tool which can be used in any of your IT initiatives. It doesn't have to be just an innovation or a migration. You can use it for the maintenance purpose also. And like I explained, it does not necessarily be, although it's being more popular with S4 scenarios, it can be used for other SAP products also. So it'll help you in innovation and migration projects. Definitely, in innovation, it's very effective. It's known for reducing the risk and in an innovation project and migration scenario. Also, it has a lot of special things in migration tools, which which actually integrate with the migration plans and all that. So, what is the value which Focus Build brings to your project? So, why should you use Focus Build? You may be already having a whole bunch of tools in your landscape, and then if you're considering on a decision about migrating to Focus Build, here are the value creators. I would say these are unique value creators which Focus Build brings to your project. The first thing is that best practices. Best practices are industry standard business process which are ready to be consumed by the customer. They are basically available in the form of a content to be installed in Focus Build. But what Focus Build does for you is that it facilitates the consumption of best practices. So best practices are a unique value creator. You'll be able to consume effectively using Focus Build. And another unique value creator is Activate. Activate, like I described, it's a proven methodology, standard agile methodology. It gives you an implementation methodology to implement any SAP product, and Focus Build is the tool to implement Activate. Whereas Activate is a methodology independent of tools, but you'll be able to leverage Activate very easily. The implementation is much easier with using Focus Build, as it's already the Focus Build is pretty much, I would say, like, it's designed to work with Activate very well. The other unique value creator is process documentation. Process documentation basically is not just a platform for developing all the documentation for the project. It's basically the platform for consuming best practices. So that's another unique value creator. And then there is integrated modules. What I mean here is that all the modules which Focus Build uses are already integrated. So there's a seamless integration and flow of all the important information or the vital information which the project team needs to see and evaluate to make decisions. So information is readily available. So it brings a lot of transparency, and all this is built into the system. So that's another unique value creator I want to explain today. So now let's go on, take a deeper dive into each of these value creators and understand what Focus Build can bring to your project. So the first thing is Activate. Activate is basically like I was trying to explain. It's a SAP's proprietary methodology and independent of any platform as such. It can be viewed as made of three parts. Basically, it gets tightly weaved into best practices. All the best practices are also in another entity, and the methodology is basically a sequential. It divides the implementation into sequential phases where it offers you a standard implementation processes where you get an opportunity to do them in a particular phase. And the accelerators are basically artifacts, or it could be artifact or a documentation, or even a little bit of additional help information for you to jumpstart a specific activity described in the methodology. So all these put together basically activate. The biggest benefit of it is that it's agile based, and it facilitates the consumption of best practices, and it's a proven method, and it reduces wastage and also reduces risk in an S4hana implementation. Let's go to understand what are these phases in Activate. So you have this prepare, explore, realize, and deploy. Prepare is basically where you scope out a solution, and prepare is basically you explore the best practices which and identify which fit in the scope, and you try to define a target business process based on best practices, and you document these gaps as requirements in Focus Build. And realize is when you configure and you test the solution, also have do a show and tell, and get feedback from the customer. And when you're ready, you complete the regression testing, integration testing, and you deploy the solution. The one of the big things I want to emphasize about Activate is that it gives a lot of opportunity to interact with the customer, and make customer as a part of the implementation team. Like you become the one team, and at every point, every interaction point, whether it's in the workshop, or it's in the show and tell, or it's in the single functional test, you have the opportunity to get feedback from the customer, and incorporate into the sprint review. And since it's an iterative way of development in the realization, realization is basically in it happens in sprints. So there's opportunity to incorporate the feedback from the customer. So that's about Activate. The biggest benefits of it is that it also facilitates the consumption of best practices. It reduces risk and wastage, and it's based on standard agile processes. The next one is the process documentation. So process documentation is basically a platform to consume best practices. As agile is a methodology, process documentation is a platform and part of the Focus Build. So it will let you process documentation being a platform where you can start with best practices, where you can, it's a platform for you to design your target business processes. So you start with best practices, scope out the best practice content which you want to use, and then you modify that to make your target process in step 3, and then you document the gaps and also fit and as requirements, and also all the RISEF and interfaces and everything you need, and you develop that in the realization phase. And as the configuration gets developed and tested, your documentation also is being developed in the platform. So when your solution goes live, you have an accurate documentation readily available for you to use actually. So it gives you, works in two ways. It helps you with it's a platform for you to consume best practices, and at the same time it also facilitates you to develop accurate documentation. Another important thing is that it's also a platform where business and IT can actually discuss about a business process, especially in the workshops. So you'll be able to effectively showcase the best practice content, and encourage discussions, about consuming best practices. Here, important point is that SAP encourages that you start with best practices in the workshop discussions, or when you're discussing the design of business process with the client. It's effective to discuss about business process. It's effective to start with best practices rather than having a business process discussion from scratch. So here's a picture about how the process documentation looks like. For example, the foremost the right hand side, you see all these process steps, and at the bottom you see all the documentation attached to a particular process, and in the bottom you'll also see like the requirements and the work items and work packages all attached to a particular end-to-end business process. So it creates a process-centric view. Actually, that's one advantage of process documentation. Um, let's go. What's the advantages of process documentation? Some of them already described it. That it's a platform to consume best practices, and by documenting all the process steps and also encouraging these discussions with the business, being a common platform for both of them to understand a business process. You may develop a better understanding of the business process, actually, and it also develops a process-centric view of all the implementation activity. So overall, it's a unique value which Focus Build brings to you, and something you should consider in your project. Now let's take a look at what's the module integration. Basically, the the key modules, the process documentation and requirements to deploy, as well as the IT PPM, or the information technology portfolio and project management, they all interconnected. For example, the process gets linked to the requirements, as well as the work packages and the work items, which are basically the change documents, and the requirements also carry the have to have all which wave they belong. The work package needs to have the wave information, and the work item needs to have the sprint, and all this information, the progress of it, and the statuses. For example, the statuses of all the functional specifications, technical specifications, and all the documents, everything, as well as the tasks, as well as the wave progress, and the requirements and all the information, it gets propagated into the solution readiness dashboard. It all happens because all these modules are interconnected. There's a seamless integration in all the modules of process documentation. In the Focus Build. So this is a unique value, since you don't have to integrate these modules and also try to configure them. So in a way, Focus Build will jumpstart your S4 project with all these things in place. So like I mentioned, solution readiness dashboard. Let's take a look at it. What it is. So it's a pre-built dashboard with pretty much all the information you need in the S4hana project. It is ready to consume information, and it all the information here, it's updated pretty frequently. It's considered as real time. It'll give you a real time control of the project. So it has all the work package information, work items, the number of all the work items in the project, the state of all the requirements, whether it's in progress or it's in unassigned, and the schedule of all the tasks. It gets information from the project plan, and the sprint burn down or the current wave progress, the number of scope changes in this project, that's also shown there, and also the functional specifications, whether they're completed or all these are all like KPIs, documented from a documentation point of view. The technical design, functional specification, all the test cases, and all the state of the development and testing. All this information is available in one place, and so you don't have to. So the project managers don't have to collect information from emails or spreadsheets and process it into more readable information. So this is readily available, ready for consumption. Also, Focus Build is role based, and it has a very simplified access created. As you can see here, for example, the architect has all the access to. You can see all the requirements assigned or created by him, as well as tiles to go to solution documentation, and also to create requirements. So it is a great tool which brings a lot of unique value. And some of the advantages here, and again I will emphasize that the most important, the biggest advantage is that Focus Build facilitates the consumption of best practices. And that's the primary purpose of it and the biggest advantage of it. And you will be able to implement SAP using Activate methodology. So it's a platform to consume to implement Activate methodology. So you'll get a real-time visibility into and control of on your project activities. You'll be able to develop accurate documentation with less wastage, actually. And overall, with all these things put together, with all the integration and the simplification it's doing for your project, you'll perhaps save thousands of hours in an SAP implementation. On top of it, it will reduce the risk in an S4hana implementation. So if you have an upcoming if you're planning on an S4hana implementation or an upgrade, please consider looking into Focused Build. Another thing I want to mention is that Focused Build can consolidate a whole bunch of tools you have today into one platform. You may be having discrete tools which may or may not have interfaces today, and you may be working with files, moving files around and things like that. But for S4hana, all you need is Focused Build. It has everything you need to implement S4hana. So this might save you a lot of time, effort, and even maybe licensing costs also. And lastly, here's my contact information. And I really appreciate listening to my presentation. If you have any more questions, please go ahead and write to my email address, and you're welcome to connect with me on my LinkedIn. Thank you.